Avatar Aang is a bad dad? The Last Airbender. That's a crazy statement, but it might be true. And I have had it with Amazon. They taking too long with the light. I'm trying to go back to the 4K camera. We staying with this camera. I'm just, after I get done with this reaction, I'm going to Walmart because Amazon is taking too long, and I'm gonna see if they got a light because I want to go back to my 4K camera, but I can't. Thank y'all for bearing with me in this lower quality. I wanted to watch this video and didn't want to leave y'all out. So here we are.
Perfect.
Is Avatar Aang a terrible father?
I don't believe it. But it could be true. Who knows? Everything that glitters, it ain't gold all the time.
Between his duties as the Avatar taking up his time, rebuilding his air nomad culture, and allegedly treating one of his children better than the others, there are a lot of people in the Avatar fandom who truly believe that Aang was a bad parent. And some go as far as to say he's abusive.
Okay, that is crazy. Okay, he's a pacifist. He wasn't afraid to pass that fist, but he's a pacifist with his own people. So what make you think that he would be any different with his children? And to be honest, children need discipline, but I don't think he was abusive. That's crazy work. He fought for peace. You think he ain't gonna fight for peace in his family? Come on now.
But is he really? Well, today I want to settle this debate once and for all.
But then again, everything that glitters ain't gold.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show.
Damn, you know, I really miss Matt Pat. He did that so much better. The new guy's cool, but I do miss Matt Pat. He did it way better, bro. Welcome to Film Theory. I missed the Matt Pat, bro.
Whose girlfriend turned into the moon.
That's rough, buddy.
You could make it a bit better by hitting that subscribe button and helping me bring balance to your YouTube subscription feed, but hey, no pressure. So, Avatar. At this point, this absolute GOAT of a series needs little introduction. Avatar is a franchise where some people can control one of the 4 traditional elements: water, fire, earth, and air. But once a generation, the Avatar is born who can control all 4 elements. The original series followed the adventures of Avatar Aang, the last airbender who has to stop a 100-year-long war alongside his friends Katara, Sokka, Toph, and Zuko. And its sequel series, The Legend of Korra, showed us what happened to those beloved characters from that series. We get to see how Team Avatar helped found cities, restarted governments, started families, and were absolutely terrible parents. Wait, what? Yeah, okay, that might seem a little bit out of left field, but let me explain. See, in Korra, we meet the children of Aang and Katara, Bumi, Kaya, and Tenzin. In fact, all 3 are either major supporting characters or main characters in the series. But based on a lot of dialogue between these siblings, many fans have gotten the impression that Aang wasn't actually that great of a father. Like, so much so that this has become one of the biggest discussions within the Avatar fandom, with tweets, Reddit threads, and whole YouTube videos dissecting the subject. Personally, I think this is a fascinating thing to dig into, one that I've wanted to do a theory on for a couple of years, but I was having a bit of trouble approaching it in a way that felt appropriate. See, while I'm a big Avatar fan and I love these sorts of discussions in the fandom, I'm not a parent, and it felt disingenuous for me to approach this without at least asking someone with that perspective about this issue.
Well, not all parents are the same, so you're gonna get a different answer from different parents when you try to interview them. Let's be honest here. Someone just gave me a notification.
Let alone someone who actually has experience working with families that have had the sorts of problems that the Avatar fandom are pointing to here. But thankfully, I knew just the people to reach out to here. Alan and Jono from Cinema Therapy. If you don't know Cinema Therapy, Alan is a professional filmmaker and Jono is a licensed therapist, and together they dissect your favorite film and television, hoping to help you learn from their characters' successes and failures. That's perfect for what we need today, so I sat down with them to talk about their thoughts on this whole situation. You can get a link to that discussion in an unlisted video down in the description. And that's not all.
We're doing a great crossover here with the film theorists. Over on our channel, we're talking about the psychology of a hero and Korra's journey throughout the series.
That's right, you can catch me over on their channel as we dissect Korra's character arc and all of the growth she goes through in her series.
You can watch it now by clicking here, or maybe down there. I don't know where they put things on this show.
This is not our show. It's like trying to find something in someone else's kitchen. You know, like where do the links go?
Where's the carrot peeler?
And where...
It'll be in the description and linked at the end of the video, so make sure you go over and check that out. Oh, and also, this is probably why you're seeing that video in your subscription feed, even if you haven't heard of cinema therapy before today. Yeah, YouTube has a new collab feature that we wanted to test out. I seriously think that this could be a game changer for creators here on the platform, so let me know what you think of it. But in the meantime, today we're going to get to the bottom of this discussion and settle the debate once and for all. Was Aang a terrible father? Was he abusive? Well, let's bend the truth out of this one. So first things first, why is this such a prevalent belief amongst so much of the fan base? Well, most of the claims about Aang's parenting come from just a couple of episodes of The Legend of Korra. Season 2, episodes 3 and 4, Civil Wars parts 1 and 2. Here, Kaya and Bumi break the news to Tenzin that their childhood wasn't as perfect as he remembers. While Tenzin fondly remembers time spent with Aang and vacations that they went on, his siblings point out that Tenzin was the only person really taken on those vacations.
I think your memory's a little foggy. Boomy and I weren't on those great vacations. It was always just you and Dad.
Uh-oh, hold up. Wait a minute. Look like we getting down to something.
Kaya and Bumi felt like Tenzin got preferential treatment, but at the same time, Tenzin points out that he felt a massive amount of pressure to carry on the legacy of the air nomads.
Tenzin was the only airbender, and I wouldn't be surprised if Aang shows favoritism towards the only airbender because he's the child that can carry on the legacy and rebuild the air nomads to what they originally were. I can see Aang doing that. And he was the literal last airbender. That's the whole show's name. Avatar, The Last Airbender. Why would he not show favoritism to the next airbender? What the fuck? I can see that. I'm just saying, this is a case we're really trying to study right now.
Just like Aang did. Like, it's hard to forget, but for a hot minute there, Tenzin was also the last airbender. So one thing every Avatar character knows is that getting injured while saving the world can be a massive pain, and they have water bending that can heal them. We're not so lucky here in the real world, but we do have something that can help, and that is the
sponsor. They not paying me.
Now, just on the face of things, I can absolutely see why fans got this belief. It's clear that Aang spent more time with Tenzin than his other kids.
Clearly.
And that he put a lot of very hefty expectations on Tenzin that he didn't on those other kids. Both of those things don't sound super great, but does that make him a bad father? Well, probably the first thing we're gonna want to do here is actually define what it means to be a bad parent.
Exactly, because for different parents, there's different perspectives. So what you may deem as bad, I may deem as good. What I may deem as bad, you may deem as good. Just depends.
And this is probably going to be a bit more challenging than you expect because, well, there are a lot of characteristics that we universally point to as being good parents, but being bad can be way more subjective, right guys?
Right.
It's difficult. It's hard to parent well because every kid is different, and you finally figure out how to parent one of them, and then you try that on the next one, and that's a therapy bill that you're going to have to pay at some point.
And we don't have magical element-bending adventures we can go on to bond with our kids IRL either. So generally in our research, I found 5 big recurring toxic traits cited as bad parenting, and those 5 are being overly controlling, being physically, emotionally, and verbally abusive, being overly critical, being demanding, and being neglectful.
I appreciate that you frame this as these are the toxic traits because imperfection is a given, but imperfection and toxicity are not the same thing. And what I would say on the flip side is that the opposite of those things are the parenting traits that we aspire to.
Right, so for example, instead of being neglectful, you're involved and meet the child's needs where they're at. Instead of being physically, emotionally, or verbally abusive, you can make sure that they feel cared and loved for, that sort of thing.
A good parent responds to the child in front of them and sees the needs and the heart of that child. I would add to that openly displayed affection and accountability.
Hey, makes perfect sense to me. So looking
I can agree with that.
at these definitions, how does Aang fare for these? Well, to be clear, we don't really see a lot of Aang's parenting skills in the the actual show, just the fallout of the kids that he raised.
Cause kids can grow up and perceive what they went through in the past as a bad thing the whole time the father was actually doing something good and they just didn't understand it. So this is why we need a series of Aang growing up until like his 20s and his 30s, so that way we can get like a look into how those three grow up. Instead, they just time skipped it 50 to 100 years in the damn future to Korra, which is fine because that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to make a series about an avatar, and then when the Avatar series is done, the Avatar dies off screen, we go to the next Avatar. And that's probably like 50 to 100 years later, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Just like the new Avatar series coming out, Avatar 7 Havens. Me personally, I would have liked to see Aang's come up, like, a little spin-off or something in the midst of the new series coming out. And then Korra. And then even when Korra got done, I would have liked to see how Korra ended up 20, 30 years down the line. When she died, yada, yada, etc., etc.
But there are a few things on this list I think we can pretty easily and safely knock off. Like, I just do not see Aang being physically abusive, demanding, or controlling in a way that becomes toxic. That is way out of character to the boy that we see in the original show. The
People change, bro. I hate when people say, you're not the same person you were. No shit, that's life. I'm not gonna be the same person I was 10, 15, 20 years ago, or not even 3 or 5 years ago. Aang could have been one way when he was 12 and then grew up to be somebody completely different or slightly different. As we grow, things change about us. There's always going to be like a core thing about us that may or may not change, but a lot of the times we have mindsets that change over time as we age. That's just life. So I wouldn't be surprised if Aang grew up to be a little bit different or a lot of bit different, with maybe some remaining traits that he had from birth that's just genetically inside of him. Like
flashbacks we see in Korra and how any of the characters, including his own children, think about Aang when they talk about him. You might be able to say that he was overly critical of Tenzin because of their airbender training, but that's a real gray area there. And there's a fine line between criticism and feedback.
It's part of the duty of a parent to give feedback to the child. Otherwise, it's just free range, and that's neglect.
Right.
That's detachment. But there's a difference between feedback and criticism. A criticism is an attack. Feedback is addressing a behavior.
And
that is true. I can get down with that.
Given what we see from Tenzin in The Legend of Korra and how he teaches airbending, feedback seems more accurate. While he and Korra clash slightly, otherwise, Tenzin is a level-headed and understanding teacher, not at all overly critical to the point of being abusive. This was actually something we covered way more of over on that Psychology of a Hero video over on Cinema Therapy, so go check that out after this video's done if you want to hear more about it.
Knowing Korra and how she was, Tenzin did a good damn job. Did he go off rails a little bit sometimes? Yes, that happens. But majority of the time, Tenzin did what he needed to do.
Probably the biggest quote-unquote sin Aang does is showing favoritism to Tenzin over Kaya and Bumi by spending more time with him, which you could argue is a form of emotional neglect to the other children. To be clear, there are two types of neglect, legal and emotional. Legal neglect is basically a failure to provide a child with the necessities they need to survive. Stuff like food, clothes, shelter, medical assistance, etc., etc. I think we can pretty safely say that Aang isn't guilty of this, and I don't think anyone's even accusing him of it either.
Hell no, he founded Republic City. He had all the resources on the planet. Like, stop, bro. Come on.
Emotional neglect, however, is a bit more complicated. This is when a caregiver fails to provide the emotional or psychological support, validation, and attention a child needs. And that is where the crux of the argument against Aang comes from, that Aang spent more time with Tenzin because he was an airbender and supposedly neglected his parental duties with Kaya and Bumi as a result.
That's why I'm saying, like, I wouldn't be surprised. It's an alleged thing. So let's continue the case study.
Sadly, this sort of dynamic isn't uncommon. Roughly 65% of families display some level of favoritism to one child over others, with some researchers referring to this as parents' differential treatment, or PDT, which can lead to strained sibling dynamics. That being said, a recent study that examined parental favoritism suggested that favoritism is natural to a degree. Like, parents are drawn to their daughters, their eldest, and children who share their temperaments and interests, which interestingly, describes each one of Aang's children. Bumi is the eldest, Kaya is the daughter, and Tenzin had the most in common with Aang. Now, to be clear, none of this is trying to excuse Aang or any of the negative feelings these characters have towards the way he parented them. Regardless of where we land in this discussion, it is true that Aang's parenting left Tenzin feeling a ton of pressure, did somewhat fray the sibling dynamic of his children, and left Bumi feeling inferior to Tenzin, even if just a little bit. But just like with most things in life, it's more complicated than it first appears on the surface. See, while we don't have a ton of direct evidence showing Aang's parenting style and effectiveness, we can get a good idea of how it worked. So when it comes to a show like this, we have three real sources of information. There's what's in the text, which is what is literally shown to us on screen. There's what out-of-universe materials tell us, like interviews with the creators, and then there's subtext. This is stuff we can figure out based on how characters act or talk about something that isn't directly stated. Honestly, there aren't a lot of conversations throughout the series directly saying either, man, Aang sucked as a father, or Aang was the best dad you could ask for. The closest we really get is a line from Kaya in the Turf Wars comic, where she says that Aang was, quote, nothing but supportive when she came out as gay. But outside of that...
Wait a damn minute.
The boy had a homo daughter? Damn.
Oh! Damn it!
That we do get a lot of subtext. For example, there's a popular saying that 80% of parenting is modeling. Basically, it's the example you set for your children and whether or not they follow that example. So the idea is that if you set a good example, you're a good parent, and your children will act like you. Now, that exact statistic, 80%, is BS, but there is some weight to this saying. For example, one study pointed out that if parents model healthy eating habits, their children are 3 times more likely to have the same eating habits. And another study found that parents who donate their money or time to charitable causes have an 80% chance to pass on those philanthropic habits to their kids. So, can we apply that same pattern from those studies to anything else? Like perhaps in the parenting styles of Aang's own children? Well, at the time of the show, only Tenzin is a parent, but we do get a lot of information about those relationships.
Tenzin's a good parent.
It's one of the best things about him.
He meets his kids where they're at, parents each one of them a bit differently. The subtext there is, listen, he learned this somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, he learned it somewhere. Come on now. He's really... I like Tenzin out of the 3. Let's be honest here. And all his children are airbenders. Like, that's crazy.
Tenzin modeled his parenting style on Aang, then that...
This nigga became the Jacob. You know, Jacob in the Bible, or Yaakov, he had to populate the Israelites, aka the Yasharalin, the Abadi. Guess what Tenzin gotta do? He gotta drop that airbender seed on a bit. And repopulate. Yeah. I ain't saying Yaakov he had to like repopulate. I'm just saying he's the one that started the line of what is called the Israelites or the Yasharal, you know what I'm saying?
That is already very solid foundations for seeing how Aang parented himself. And we know that Tenzin treats these kids very well. He doesn't appear to give any of them preferential treatment. In fact, when Jinora becomes a notably young airbending master, it's actually Tenzin who's hesitant to give her that title. Partially out of fairness, and partially because he wants her to enjoy childhood just a little bit more. And despite feeling like he's putting his duties as a parent aside to work with the Republic City Council and to help rebuild air nomad culture, Tenzin is still a very present father, spending time with his kids and training with them. He even brings his 3 kids to help him train Korra in airbending. And taking this idea of modeling just one step further, we can look at how Tenzin, Bumi, and Kaya all turned out as people.
All 3 of these kids grew up to be incredible people. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. You don't have one good parent, Katara, and one absolute dog crap parent in Aang, and all 3 kids grow up pretty well adjusted and heroic and self-sacrificing and just good people. That only happens if both parents, at least to an extent, are doing the right things.
Which I think that Katara, especially Katara, and Aang did a good job. I don't believe that he would do a bad job as a parent, bro. Did he have flaws? Absolutely, we all do. But overall, if you really look at Aang's character, just at his base, even if he did change a little bit, I don't think that Aang would be a bad parent, you know.
100% correct. And in fact, we can take it even beyond that. A factor that should be considered here is that Aang wasn't parenting these children alone. Yeah, the fact that Katara was also present in these kids' lives is...
And Katara damn near parented Aang for us. a good little minute before you clap them shits.
Something that I often see left out of these conversations, though it's not one size fits all, and this isn't the case in every family. In many family units, including this one we see in the Avatar series, parenting is something done in partnership. It's a couple working together to raise their kids, while also filling in for the weaknesses of their partner in parenting when and where they can. I don't think it's a controversial statement to say that Katara was probably a pretty great mom. She was always very nurturing and loving to everyone around her, let alone...
See? She was his rib before she became his rib, you feel me?
her family and the people that she cared about. She almost certainly picked up some of the slack when Aang was dealing with his duties as the Avatar. And, I mean, Katara is a strong, opinionated character. When she sees an injustice, she isn't gonna let it stand.
I will never, ever turn my back on people who need me.
Don't you think that standard would extend into her family life, too?
She's not gonna stay with Aang if he's not living up to the standard, right? Like, she's not gonna put up with that crap.
She's not. So then there's the case of Tenzin getting those special vacations and trips along with Aang where Bumi and Kaya were left out. On the surface, this one looks like clear favoritism being shown to Tenzin, and
it could be that those vacations were something that Aang used as a way to show Tenzin airbender stuff. We don't know, just saying.
I mean, inarguably, he did get to spend more time with their father. No one in or out of the show argues against that. And that right there makes things a bit complicated because it also makes sense.
My dad is an attorney. My uncle is an attorney. My cousins are attorneys. My brother is an attorney. And I'm a family therapist. It is unavoidable that these two are going to be in the corner sometimes talking about about things I don't understand. It's not about parenting. It's about dual relationships. Aang is Tenzin's father. He's also a mentor to an airbender.
Exactly. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the case. He's an airbender. He's an airbender. Duh.
And because the lines are blurry, it feels like favoritism.
Exactly right, Jono. Aang and Tenzin's relationship is so complicated because of the unique circumstances they're both put in. For years there, they were both literally the last airbenders.
Literally.
And they only had each other to share in that massive pressure, like we said earlier. The rest of their family could absolutely sympathize, but they could never fully, completely understand.
And that's the thing, they won't understand because they don't realize the predicament that they were truly in. I don't even think they understand now. Well, actually, I think they understand now. But growing up, I don't think that Bumi and Kaya really realizing the weight that on Aang's shoulders and on Tenzin's shoulders. And we know Aang wasn't gonna stop till he had him an airbender. Bumi wasn't no airbender. Kaya wasn't no airbender. He was not gonna stop till he found him an airbender. Fuck you.
And Aang had the additional burden of having to pass on his entire people's culture to Tenzin in the limited time they had together.
There's just a time commitment. You've got to teach him all the history. You've got to teach him airbending. You've got to, there's a lot of just time that you have to spend with that. And if it hadn't been Tenzin, if it had just been Bob down the street who was the only airbender, he would have been spending that time with Bob.
Not only that, but if we really want to think several layers deep here about these special vacations Aang and Tenzin went on, well, just think of the situation Aang knew he was putting Tenzin in. There's a ton of pressure to continue an entire civilization put on a kid's shoulders. That's a lot for any one single person, let alone a child.
And we're like, well, it was for the training, it was for this or that. Maybe it also is because Tenzin had so much pressure on him that Aang is like, let's go have some fun. Let's go release the steam. And you need this individualized attention because you've got pressure on you that Bumi and Kaya don't.
Now,
you see what I'm saying? I'm being optimistic for a reason, and y'all are really bringing out the case files and showing us exactly why I'm being optimistic about this. I don't like to just be like, oh, Aang was a bad father. He shows favoritism, and he didn't love his other kids. That would be assuming. If Aang did all this for these exact reasons, I would be okay with that because of all the weight on his shoulders and Tenzin's shoulders. If he took Tenzin on a vacation to let some steam off, nigga, if I was Bumi and I understood, I'd be like, hey, bro, do your thing. You know what I'm saying? You're an airbender. I'm not. Our dad's literally the only last airbender. He's trying to teach you the traditions, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Do your thing, bro. I'm going to go play the Atari. Y'all have fun.
Don't get me or the guys wrong. In an ideal world, a parent would want to spend an equal amount of time with all of their kids. They'd want to go on these sort of special, individualized vacations with all of them. But in practice, especially if that parent is also the last person carrying on an entire culture and a high-status political figure like the Avatar, there isn't enough time in the world for that.
It's not.
Aang and Katara had to prioritize what they did for each of their kids, and given the pressure that Tenzin was under, it's not a stretch that those two agreed that Tenzin and Aang needed to spend some time together that wasn't about all the responsibility of rebuilding the air nomads, and thus, the vacations. And
this is such a great video, bro.
one more point here is that Bumi and Kaya, and a lot of people commenting about this online, have a limited perspective.
Well, and also, Bumi and Kaya don't have kids. And I'm not saying that therefore their perspective is invalid.
Well, we know why Kaya ain't got no kids.
Oh, nigga, you gay.
I'm saying their perspective is different.
It's limited.
And I think this is true of sometimes people online who are critics of Aang as a parent, and they say this is terrible writing and it totally destroyed Aang.
This is a really important part of this conversation online that I think gets lost a lot, and why I wanted to bring on actual parents to talk about this. We live in an online culture right now that really thrives on black and white issues.
In the beginning of this video, I made it clear that each parent have different perspectives. I think the one thing that we have to highlight here is that those two men right here are very competent, very aware, very accountable, and very intelligent, and very optimistic. Oh, and they got experience alongside of it. They are well beyond any reason to speak about this topic. I can actually respect everything they just said because it makes sense. They looked at every case file to make sure that their verdict made sense.
Something is either good or it's bad. Someone is either the hero or the villain of the week. There is no gray area between the best thing ever or literally the worst. And that's just not how the real world works. That's not how real families work. And that's not how parenting works.
Actual abusive parents, the kids are critical of them, the kids may have their own kids, and they still think their parents were abusive or toxic or awful. Good people trying to be good parents who are just flawed at it and imperfect at it have kids who are critical until the kids have kids.
And then they go, oh, I was much angrier until I had my own kids and was like, damn. She did the best she could.
She did the best she could. Let me tell you something. When I grew up, I ain't got no kids right now. I've had a lot of scares. I wouldn't say a lot. I've had a couple, but I'm just glad I ain't got none right now. This is not the best time for me to have some. I'm trying to build an empire right now. I need to build the empire for them so they can have it a whole lot easier in life than a lot of people I grew up with. My mom and dad did the best they could. They were definitely flawed as hell though, for sure. But they did the best they could, and I understand a lot of the things they did now. That I'm wiser, I'm competent, like I'm not stupid. Like I understand what they were doing. Some things I did think that they was doing was fucking retarded. But some things that I look at now that they did also, I see why they did it.
You know, after all of this research, diving into the discussions on forums and YouTube, and sitting down to talk with Alan and Jono, something I really want to bring this discussion to is this question. Even if Aang was a flawed parent, not a bad one, but a flawed parent, isn't that okay? Not that we shouldn't want to be the best parents we can, or allow ourselves to settle for nothing less than the best for the children in our lives, but a core theme in the Avatar franchise is that avatars aren't perfect. Each and every one of them is flawed because they have to balance incredibly complex and demanding worldwide responsibilities on top of their personal lives. Avatar Roku let his friendship with Fire Lord Sozin cloud his judgment, which led to a 100-year war that killed hundreds of thousands, potentially millions. Kyoshi ushered in an era of global peace, but was also ruthless and violent, setting up the dominoes for the Earth Kingdom's corrupt ruling class in the present day. Kuruk spent his life dealing with spirits attacking the material world in secret, sacrificing his personal relationships and being labeled a do-nothing avatar. Yang Chen failed to balance her duties in the physical and spiritual worlds, siding with humans more often than not, leading to the rise of those dark spirits that Kuruk had to deal with in the first place. Doesn't it make Aang a better character if he had flaws like this? this too if he wasn't a perfect parent on top of not being a perfect person?
That's the illusion that a lot of people are under. They think that all of the avatars have to be this perfect person. They think subconsciously that they're not human beings like them, that hold weight on their shoulders just like them.
He had both successes and failures as a parent, just like he had both successes and failures as an avatar. Someone having flaws and shortcomings is not a moral failing of a person, a parent, or an avatar. It's just a part of life.
Well, listen, we've all watched the show. We know Aang is a good avatar who made plenty of mistakes. From watching Korra, we see that Aang is a good parent who made plenty of mistakes. And that's in the text. We get to see it.
And that is really the final nail in the coffin of the idea that Aang was somehow a bad or neglectful or abusive parent, because none of his kids end up thinking so in anything we see in the series. Kaya remembers him as nothing but supportive in the comics. Bumi hopes that he's made him proud.
I'm sorry I didn't turn out to be an airbender like you hoped, but I've tried my best to keep the world safe. Hope I made you proud.
And all three of the kids remember their childhood and their family as being a happy one.
That is one good-looking family, huh?
That's one happy family.
And in the end, that is just not what would happen with children of an abusive parent. Was Aang perfect? No, but he did his best. And that isn't a theory.
That's just some therapy.
Some cinema therapy.
And cut.
Fantastic video. It made so much sense. It was great. It was insightful. It was informative. Oh man. I need to start reacting to film theory more, even though I used to watch film theory like a lot before Matt Pat, packed up, you know what I'm saying, and left. But it's great to come back to film theory and now cinema therapy, and I guess, and to see them still doing a thug dizzle, man. It's awesome. I love these videos. I would sit here and say, what do y'all think about the video? Do you think that Aang was a bad dad? We see here. No. Court is adjourned. My camera twerking. We don't need to see if he was a bad dad. The evidence speaks for itself. Aang was not a bad dad. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave your thoughts and comments down in the comment section. And until the next time, I'll see y'all in the next video. Shalom.
Hey, listen!
Rose petals on the floor. The one from my dreams, and you're with me right now, mi amor. Mi corazón te quiero. Right here and now, I'll give you a taste. Snake princess, I'll be your gift.